Welcome to Issued for Construction. I'm your host, Jonathan Jacobs. And today I've got with me a gentleman that I met last year when I was working at Walden. I was introduced to him through some other people within the industry. You've already read his name in the name of the episode. So as funny as I do this, I'm like, oh, you already know who it is. But his name is Kregg Fordyce. Kregg Fordyce is the owner of StudioDEEP. And for those of you that don't know Kregg, well, I'm going to tell you that you're missing out because he's a great guy sitting across from me right now. He didn't know I was going to say all this. So, Kregg, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, it's great. I'm excited to be here, John. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
In a few minutes, Kregg Fordyce is going to talk about the idea that a well-designed space is defined by the intention behind every element in it. That nothing inside a home should be an afterthought. That is a philosophy that Kaplan's Appliances has lived by for generations. Kaplan's is a Toronto institution. They carry the world's finest appliance brands, and they work with architects, designers, and homeowners, as well as builders who understand that what goes into a kitchen or a laundry room matters as much as what surrounds it. But here is what separates Kaplan's from everyone else in that space. The sale is just the start of their service. From the moment a selection is made through to delivery, installation, and beyond, the Kaplan's team is with their clients every step of the way. Rob and the team, including Janine on the trade and industry side, have built a reputation not just for what they sell, but for how they show up long after the transaction is complete. That is rare. That is Kaplan's. If you are a design or construction professional looking for an appliance partner who takes the long view, reach out to Janine directly through the liner notes. And if Kaplan's has been a part of a project you are proud of, share it with them on Instagram. If you are enjoying the show, please take a moment to leave a 5-star review wherever you are listening. It makes an enormous difference, and you can follow along on Instagram. Any questions, comments, email me. It's Jonathan, Jonathan, @issuedforconstruction.ca. Now, back to Kregg.
So, give me some background. I was introduced to Kregg through a couple guys here in Toronto, Jason Halter and Joel Loblaw. Subsequently met Stefano through you. And it's an incredible team. Kregg's work is visible pretty much all throughout the GTA. And I say Kregg's work. I should say the studio's work is available and visible and can be engaged with all throughout the GTA and beyond. And we'll get into all of that. So if you want to, you obviously can head over to Instagram and see the work. You can head to their website. It's available in liner notes. But with all of that said, my rant now complete. Kregg, tell everyone else who's listening a little bit about you. Where were you born? What was life like for you as a kid? What kind of kid were you? Start there.
All right. Okay. Well, I was born in Northern Ontario.
Okay.
So I was born in Sudbury.
Okay.
And the first sort of 7-8 years of life were in Capreol, which is about an hour north of Sudbury, so a small CN town.
Okay.
And so I have an affinity for the north. I really, I think that's some of my favorite places to be. And then my family moved to Southern Ontario. It was about 8 years old, and into Niagara, where my mother was from.
Okay.
And it was interesting because my dad was working in aviation up in Sudbury. He was the weatherman and also the meteorologist for the Sudbury International Airport at the time.
Wow.
So when he came south, he actually moved into marine, and he was like focused on the sort of the Great Lakes and the Welland Canal, that sort of system. So relocated in Niagara, and then that's where I basically finished my elementary school, went to high school. And it was great. I really enjoyed that area as well, and have a sort of a fond memories of growing up there. And it was a great place to sort of have my roots.
And what was it? Did you have siblings?
Yeah, I got a brother.
Okay.
I got a younger brother, Cam. He's awesome. He's a business owner as well.
Okay.
He went more the agricultural route.
Okay.
And was we're 16 months apart. So, we're close. And, we had a lot to do with each other, growing up. And to this day, we're tight. He's in Guelph, and, he's got I've got 2 awesome nephews from him. So really good.
That's great.
Yeah.
And were the two of you, like when you were growing up, you say an hour plus north of Sudbury, for those first 8 years, like, were you into hockey? Were you playing baseball? Were you instrumental? Were you scientific? Were you painting? Were you creating snow forts? Like, what kind of?
I think a lot of snow forts. Yeah, definitely in the.
Did you have a tunnel system?
Yeah, tunnel systems, everything, man. Yeah, that was like, if we get into the snow, into a snowbank, that's what we would do, is just dig these caves and stuff, and it was awesome. Yeah. Definitely remember those days. And
there's a big smile on your face right
now. No, it was that brings back some good memories, actually. As a kid. I think that the northern lifestyle was interesting. Small town. My dad played hockey and stuff, and was extremely athletic. He was from the GTA, and he was a track athlete here, and football player and hockey player. So we grew up with like a lot of encouragement to play sports, and both my brother and I, competed, at, relatively high athletic levels all the way through university. So
in what sports?
My brother swam, and I ran track and field.
Oh,
yeah.
And were you short or long or mid?
Mid. Yeah. Okay. I ran like 600 indoors and 4x8 were the 2 events that I ran when I was in university. And I did like as a youth and like into high school, did a lot of different sports, right? And played soccer, which I played till I was, probably 18, and not to the level that my boys play today, but definitely, sort of enjoyed the game, and beautiful game. It's awesome. And then, didn't get really into the hockey or the sort of American football that my dad was, but, always had an appreciation for it. And especially, Canada, it's the Canadian game on the hockey end of it. And he was a big fan of CFL. So, we always like sort of had that around. My grandfather as well, going down Saturday nights and, watching the hockey game was always like a tradition, in our family sort of thing. So, yeah, I think the sports were important, but also music. My brother and I were both encouraged to, sort of play instruments and stuff.
So what did you play?
Played the piano.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was one of those guys though that didn't have, my ear's not great, right? So I did the theory and I did my Royal Conservatory to the 10th level, I guess it would have been. And
how many levels are there?
I think that's like the kind of where you kind of top out.
Okay.
I think that there's like maybe, I can't remember exactly. Like I had like the theory was like different. Like it was like, I was like the 3rd level of theory sort of thing. And it was, it was good. It was something that I really enjoyed, and I didn't have to really be told to practice, so it was something I found always like a little soothing and way to clear my mind.
Yeah.
But, I didn't have like I wouldn't say like a great skill. I could read music well, but like the ear thing, I always like was irritated by the guy at the campsite that would pull out the guitar, right? Start singing without much probably schooling. They didn't have the lessons and stuff, and just start singing beautifully. And I'd be like, you can't bring this piano to the campfire, and I have no ear, so I can't sing well. So frustrating. But anyway, that's just an aside.
I've kind of told this story before, but I grew up. I played guitar when I was really young. I was taught by a guy named Ellie Kastner, who was like a famous classical guitarist for Canada. I think he got the Order of Canada at one point. I was taught by him, and then another woman that was taught by him, who was at the time was considered, the other big name, and I was not the big name. Just to say that. Got it. Was Leona Boyd.
Okay.
And she was like a international star of classical guitar back in the day.
Nice.
And the same thing, like, I stopped playing, and then you go to like overnight camp, and this guy cracks out a guitar and starts playing it, and I was like, oh, I was better than you when I was when I was 7. And I can't do it now. I don't know how.
Yeah, it's so frustrating.
Anyhow, so what about when you moved south to Niagara? How long were you in Niagara for?
I lived there until I guess it would have been 1989, and then I actually did an exchange to Finland,
Oh,
where I
in high school?
yeah
Or
yeah my last year of high school I spent I basically sacrificed my at that point in time my OAC year,
yeah.
grade 13, to go to Finland. So I had to come back and finish that before I went on to university. But
What was in Finland?
Finland, I went on Rotary exchange, which was amazing. I had a wonderful time. I didn't actually pick Finland as like the country that I wanted to go to, but I found myself there, and I had a like unbelievable experience. Like it was somewhat foundational, I think, to me getting into sort of architecture, just given the living in sort of a Scandinavian country, and visiting Stockholm and Helsinki, and sort of living in a smaller, I was in Varkauss, which is about 4 to 5 hours north of Helsinki. So again, northern, it was like pretty dark a lot of the winter stuff,
It's like Viking territory.
yeah, it was great. It was, I guess, taking me back to my youth to a certain extent. And it was very much like Northern Ontario, like a lot of small lakes, and a lot of forest, and
right.
Really the Finns are a little shy at first, right? But they get a bit of Koskenkorva in them, like vodka, and then the Finglish starts coming out, and it was like a really amazing experience. Like just the people are beautiful, the landscape is beautiful, and the architecture was beautiful and impactful, even though I didn't really know it at the time.
I was going to ask you, like, when you went there, did you know where you'd eventually kind of land professionally, or did you have no idea? You were just going there.
Point. Yeah. Like I think I was always, I enjoyed art in school, and I enjoyed, sort of making things. I think that the idea of making, my grandfather was like he would do woodworking. He had a shop, and he would always take my brother and I out and spin stuff on the lathe with us and that. So I really enjoyed that. I think that was something I always paid attention, and I'm happy that I did. Like it's good memories in terms of sitting there with my grandfather, and sort of listening to him talk about making something, and making mistakes, and like how you can use a mistake to really find something else, something beautiful that other people won't recognize it as a mistake. You're the only one that would see that, sort of, if you really think outside the box in terms of how to solve it. And he had some very nice insights that I think have resonated sort of throughout my life on that end of it. Yeah,
cool. And so what from that experience were you able to bring back with you that you felt was kind of game changing for your trajectory?
I think when I came back, like I had a year left in high school. I went to a high school in Fonthill called E.L. Crossley, and it was an interesting high school because it, I did a lot of sports and stuff, and I was going through trying to get my courses to be able to apply to university, and my language had suffered. I think my English had suffered a little bit while I was in Finland, and by no stretch of the imagination did I, master Finnish in that 1 year. But I did okay.
Yeah,
I did okay for a guy without a year. And when I came back, I think I was pushing, sort of academically to get my marks up, and the school had has a large mural on the front of it by
on the exterior.
Yeah. It's quite beautiful. It's a mosaic. Like it's a full 4-story sort of thing.
Wow.
And, it's a gorgeous. It's by an artist named Heinz Gogol, and he was like a local. He had a studio actually in the top of the high school, like in this atrium space at one point. And he was it was sort of a weird sort of setup there, and really kind of something that I always thought was kind of cool. And I really didn't focus on the art, but it was something that I enjoyed. And I liked science. And then coming back from Finland, I found that there was this like sort of, there's something about architecture that seemed intriguing then, and it was I think I liked the scale of the buildings there. I lived in sort of small Finnish homes that were, a lot of them designed, right? It was the first time I had really sort of inhabited homes that were designed by an architect, right? I grew up in sort of a suburban community, like many of us in Ontario.
We're going to pause here for a moment, because what Kregg just described about living in Finland, about inhabiting spaces that were smaller but more considered, where materials were exposed and every element was deliberate, is exactly the kind of thinking that drives the work of our partners at The Doors. The Doors is a European window and door company founded and run by Martin and Marta. They import and supply some of the most beautifully engineered fenestration products available in this market. They are not off-the-shelf solutions. These are windows and doors designed in a tradition that Kregg just described from the inside out. A Scandinavian and European sensibility where the threshold between inside and outside is treated as an architectural moment, not a commodity detail. For architects and builders who are working on projects where the envelope matters, where the quality of light, the thermal performance, and the tactile experience of opening a door or window is part of the design conversation, The Doors is the partner you want at the table early. Martin and Marta can be reached through the liner notes for this episode. Follow them on Instagram to see their work in context. And if you have worked with The Doors on a project, let them know how much you like working with them. If this show has been useful to you, a 5-star rating goes a long way. It helps with exposure. If you want to connect with The Doors, email me directly. It's Jonathan, JONATHAN @issued4construction.ca. And now, back to Kregg.
And a builder home has a particular quality to it, especially those sort of built in the 70s. I think there's a bit of nostalgia there now in terms of like what that is. And going to Finland, there was a difference. The spaces were smaller, but they were very well contemplated.
Right, more intentional.
Yeah, very intentional. And there was an aesthetic that was something that resonated with me.
Like what?
I think the use of materials and the exposing materials, like the use of wood in Finland, is important. It warms the space. The ritual of sauna, absolutely amazing. Something that was significantly impactful for me to this day.
I am waiting for my kids to get older so I can put one in the backyard.
Yeah, it's something that for me that just like really made a lot of sense in life, and I really enjoyed it while I was in Finland, and then throughout my life have somewhat sought it out to a certain extent. And now I live in a condominium in downtown Toronto, and it's part of my lifestyle today to this date. So,
using the sauna inside,
the sauna,
in the fitness facility.
Yeah. No, it's definitely
dry or wet.
A wet sauna is preferable, like that. You can use Lola. Lola is like a word that we can't translate because we don't have it in English.
Okay.
But the act of putting water onto the stones, and then I think Vasta is another, like sort of hitting yourself with some birch leaves, getting the sort of menthol out of the leaves on the skin and stuff like that. That ritual I find very powerful.
Are there places locally that have that?
I think that if you go to some of the spas, like the local spas, sort of maybe north of the city, and that definitely in terms of the Lola, and then people will use different techniques in terms of bringing out the like you either like wave a towel or something to sort of help stimulate your circulation system.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I love it. My wife up in Muskoka, they were doing this sauna on the lake, so a small little transportable sauna unit in Gravenhurst, which is, for those listening, Muskoka, about 2 hours, an hour and a half, 2 hours north of Toronto. And you'd be able to go into the sauna, and then you'd walk out, and you'd be in a bathing suit, and you'd do a cold plunge in the lake, and then back into the sauna, and you kind of go back and forth.
That's like when I was in Finland and being introduced to that was like spectacular. The Finns do it sans clothes though, so that was like a little prudish, sort of Canadian boy had to get over that. But now no problems that way.
It's Seinfeld, it's shrinkage.
Exactly. Yeah.
Didn't think I'd be going there today, but you're like,
hey, see
when cold,
clean, man.
Okay, the rating for this one will go too explicit. So you came back, and then what? You had to do? Did you know that you were gonna? Did you declare that you wanted to go into architecture then, or was it something that you came to afterwards? How did that work?
I think that what I had, sort of looking at, schools to go to. I had applied to Waterloo and to Queen's and McMaster. Queen's McMaster for science, and had got acceptance, and Waterloo I'd applied for architecture. I didn't get an interview at the time, and which was kind of a interesting story, I guess. My mother being, kind of a very, sort of proactive mother.
We didn't talk about what your mother did, what her profession was, or what she did.
My parents are both civil servants. So
okay.
My dad worked for the federal government. My mom worked at Niagara College, and she was an administrator for their childcare program.
Okay.
So and she was very, much in my brother and I's corner in terms of us growing up and supporting us and sort of pushing us. So she had talked to my guidance counselor about, why didn't Kregg get, an interview? His average seems like it should have been, and the guidance counselor did a bit of research, and somebody had messed up, and I didn't have all of my courses listed when they were sent into, I think, the processing center for universities at that time was in Guelph or something, right? So we don't know if it was on the high school's end of it or like, on the processing,
right?
But I didn't have physics or calculus, and at the time you had to have that as part of the your average, right?
Right.
So interestingly enough, I got a call from the University of Waterloo, and it was from a guy by the name of Anu Banerjee, and he was a professor in the architecture school, but also worked in the planning school. And Anu spoke to me for 45 minutes. He started the conversation by we've got our cohort this year, and we kind of understand that something didn't go great here. Yeah. But he's like, we would like to, offer you maybe a place in the school of planning. And I was like, what's planning? So planning became something that I learned about very quickly from Anu, and he did like such a good sell job that by the end of that conversation, I was accepting to go to planning at the University of Waterloo.
Well, I mean, it's like that's how pretty much like 95% of the world learns architecture, right?
Well, yeah.
Like outside of North America, like everyone else is studying planning and architecture together.
Yeah. Well, and this was sort of the beginning of the journey for me, I think, in terms of the two professions.
Right.
So I had accepted, and Anu was an interesting guy. Like he really so was encouraging during school, and really he had sort of offered up like, come to planning for the first year, take like the urban design studio and stuff, and maybe you can do a couple electives with the architects, and then reapplied architecture the next year, sort of thing, right? That was kind of his goal. But I ended up having a really great university experience at Waterloo in planning, right? And I took the full 4 years there. And then Anu and another prof, Mike Elmet, and a third prof, Karen Hammond, suggested that I go on and do Masters of Architecture. After that, they didn't have Masters of Architecture at the University of Waterloo at that point in time. That's what led me to Calgary.
Oh, interesting.
And then I did my Masters of Architecture at the Faculty of Environmental Design in Calgary, which was
cool.
Also awesome.
Well, I was going to say, you seem to keep finding the north.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you know, the Waterloo experience and the Calgary experience were both, you know, very, very different, but very, very fulfilling, and both academically and personally, and with regard to sport, you know, being close to the mountains and being able to, you know, really enjoy a couple of my passions, which at the time, skiing, climbing, mountain biking were definitely top right up there. So Calgary was spectacular on that end of it. So
What's interesting is like this episode's gonna be coming out at the same time I believe that I am today, this week in BC.
nice.
To do some interviews and spend some time with a couple guys out in BC, all tied to the idea of going out and hanging out with some of these people, but and learning and bringing people together, but also doing some mountain biking.
Nice. I'm jealous.
I can't wait.
So yeah, it was like that area, like, just, you know,
the immersion.
I don't have enough good things to say about that. That was like.
So where were you skiing? Were you skiing? You kicking horse or a Banff or Sunshine? Where were you?
All of the above. Yeah, no, I was fortunate enough to sort of I was working with the Canadian Ski Patrol when I was there. So
yes,
that was like kind of a window into a bunch of different mountains in the area, which is good. My university experience there was awesome because I had a friend who I grew up with in Welland, like in Niagara, who had moved out to Calgary. She'd moved with a boyfriend who they'd gone to Queens together, and they basically, you know, finished university, packed a car up, and drove out to Calgary, right? And they had a place set up with this woman who was absolutely amazing. She was going back to school. Her father had bought her a house and said, like, you know, you have to take care of, you know, the rent.
Yes.
And, you know, get good roommates and stuff like that. Make sure that they pay their rent on time. And, you know, if they do, you get the right people, you can have access to one of our chalets at Panorama, which the family had. So I got to Calgary, and the Calgary thing was a little weird because I had been accepted to a school in the States as well to do my master's there. And I was calling Calgary to actually defer and ended planning on going to the States. And I got this guy on the phone who was the liaison between the faculty and the student body. This guy, Bill Peronchuk, he was like a really super nice guy. And
this is at Calgary.
This is out of Calgary.
Okay.
And I was saying to him, okay, well, I want to defer.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to this other school. And he's like, well, why? And then, like, I don't know if I'm a pushover or what it is, but another 45 minutes on the phone with like this guy, and he had me convinced to go to Calgary. So then I called up the other university and was like, yeah, I'm deferring you, and I'm going to Calgary, right? And then a week and a half or 2 weeks later, I was like I was on a plane with 2 bikes, you know, a set of skis, and a backpack, and no place to live.
Yes. Yes.
So they had an introductory, you know, to that program, the UVDS program. They had something at the Calgary Zoo. So we all showed up and went to the zoo as like kind of orientation sort of thing. And it was like there's some design charrette that we were doing, and we could sleep at the zoo. It was, so we slept at the zoo for a night or two sort of thing, made a couple friends, and ended up couch surfing for a bit. And then my friend who was moving now from, at this point in time, from Queens to Calgary. And at that point in time, I don't even think I had a cell phone. I don't know. But it was like,
you probably wouldn't have.
Yeah, maybe. I don't. Anyway, it was.
This is what, mid 90s.
Mid 90s sort of thing. So it might not have had.
I was going to say you probably might have got like a Nokia like in the late 90s.
Yeah. So anyhow, I ended up through my mom talking to her mom. Understand that she's coming out, and that they have a place that they're going to stay. And if I went and talked to this woman, Patty Smith, that I could potentially stay there. So I bike over on my mountain bike and, you know, ring the doorbell, and Patty opens the door and she's like, "You're Kregg?" I'm like, "Yep." She's like, "You mountain bike?" I'm like, "Yep." She's like, "You ski?" I'm like, "Yep." She's like, "You're in."
Interview complete.
Interview complete.
Your portfolio is present. We are good.
Yeah. So we had like a pretty amazing 4 years out in Calgary, and it's a long degree, like the master's, if you don't have the undergraduate, but it was worth the time. And I met some really good people there. Chris Kabinga from Thomas Brown Architects, who we work with today, was a close friend there. And we have a couple other relationships that we've maintained. Gravity Architecture, Steve Barnicat, and MGA out in Calgary, or in Kelowna.
Yeah.
So we have a good crew that some of us still keep in contact.
And do you ever get together and like go skiing again?
Not skiing, no. That crew though, we kind of all got together just before Christmas here in Toronto. We were doing sort of our Christmas party with StudioDEEP, and we have a sort of a network of firms that we're trying to do some joint venture with across Canada, and then obviously Stefano's involved in that too. So we had a bit of a gathering before Christmas, which was nice.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Okay. And you complete this master's degree, 4 years. Is there a co-op associated with that master?
No. This is one of the things, I guess, in terms of like even going to Waterloo, I didn't do the co-op stream because I had a summer job that kind of carried me all the way through university.
Which was?
I worked search and rescue for the Canadian Coast Guard. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. It was with the inshore rescue boat program in the Great Lakes, and it was it's fantastic. It was like I highly recommend it to any young people out there that are interested in boats and sort of saving people.
I was in West Palm Beach in March, and I met 2 U.S. Coast Guard officers that were there at the same time. Trump was there, and they were surveying the entire coastline as a part of security while Trump was there in Mar-a-Lago. I was asking them, I said, what was one of the hardest challenges you've come across in your professional career? And they told me, this is while I'm waiting for like my takeout at a restaurant.
Nice.
And these guys do the same thing. And they told me that the hardest thing that they've ever had to deal with was the size of the water on the Great Lakes.
Oh, yeah.
And that you couldn't believe that you could get 20 and 30 foot swells on the Great Lakes. And one of the one of the most impressive things they ever had happen was that there was a kayaker that was like stuck, couldn't get back to where he was going into to the US because of the size of the swells. He was being pulled out into the middle of the lake, and they came and with helicopter got him back.
Right.
And the reception that they received from this guy's mom when they brought him back, he was like a 22-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I say it because
I
could not imagine the idea of being out in the middle of nowhere with water.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, the Great Lakes can be dangerous, and growing up with my dad as a meteorologist, we were always very careful of the weather, and my parents always had a boat on Lake Erie, so my brother and I, grew up sort of as beach rats on Lake Erie, and it was something that my dad was connected into the Coast Guard through what he did with meteorology, and he was aware of this program and sort of encouraged me to look into it, and it was a wonderful program. It was like basically 5 bases like throughout the Great Lakes, and it's all 50% women, 50% men, all sort of doing university and college. And you're basically trained it's basically six people for a base, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off all summer. And just in some of the prettiest, most amazing places in Ontario. It was spectacular.
What an experience, from that to also then being on a ski patrol.
Yeah, it kind of kept me.
Look at you, Craig.
kept me going. You know, it was a lot of fun. It was one of the jobs as well that sort of tied me to like one of my favorite places. I think, like in terms of if we're talking like kind of natural settings, and that's northeastern Georgian Bay, where
why?
You know, the group of 7 did a lot of painting up there, right? And it was something that, as a youth, you know, I sort of, you know, you hear about the group of 7, started to, you know, enjoy their artwork, and then being, you know, sort of in that landscape and really starting to just appreciate like sort of how the colors are just like absolutely surreal, right? You know, you have the Georgian Bay blue, you know, in terms of the water, adjacent to, you know, sort of the pink granite of like, let's say the Fox Islands or something. And, you know, the bands of, you know, sort of quartzite or grays running through the pink granite. And then, you know, the moss, you know, with the sort of like, you know, frosty green and then, you know, the Georgian Bay trees, you know, all like sort of, you know, wind bent. And you look over to the Kosh Mountains and you see the quartzite, you know, which looks like snow in the middle of summer, but it's not. And just the sky, you know, it's just like absolutely, you know, fantastic area. And to this day, it's like, you know, I've traveled to, you know, a lot of places that are really pretty places in the world. And I'd have to say that that's still my favorite.
Yeah. All right.
Earlier in this conversation, Craig talked about water in a way that very few people do. The ritual of the sauna, followed by a cold plunge into a lake. The Great Lakes from the deck of a Coast Guard vessel, and just now Georgian Bay described, with the kind of precision and feeling that only comes from someone who has spent real time inside a landscape. The pink granite, the quartzite, the Georgian Bay blue. For Craig, water is not an amenity. It is something closer to a philosophy. That is exactly the lens through which our partners at Aquanta Pools approach their work. Aquanta is not a pool company in the conventional sense. They are specifiers of biodesign, applying biological principles and natural systems thinking to the design and construction of aquatic environments. Yuri and the Aquanta team work with architects, landscape architects, and developers who understand that a pool done right is an extension of the natural world rather than a departure from it. Whether it is a natural swimming environment, a biologically filtered water feature, or an aquatic amenity within a larger residential or mixed-use project, Aquanta brings a level of thinking to the water that very few in this market can match. If you're working on a project where the outdoor or aquatic environment is part of the design conversation, reach out to Yuri through the liner notes. You can follow Aquanta on Instagram to see what biologically informed pool design actually looks like in practice. If this episode has given you something to think about, please leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're listening. It helps more people find the conversation. You can also follow along on Instagram. But for now, let's get to the conclusion with Craig. Thanks for listening.
I'm gonna take a second just to absorb all of that, because like what a experience through your 20s, man.
Yeah.
Late teens into 20s.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you finish your architecture degree. You've now pursued activities at the top of prehistoric mountains, and in your off time swam in what is some of the last freshwater strongholds of the world.
Yep.
So you're on both plateau. Was it both plateaus? Both geographies.
Yeah.
I don't even know why I'm going to say that, but anyhow. And then you finish, and now how do you determine where you're going to go work? Because you're in Calgary, you finished this, you've got opportunity, I guess, still in that summertime to be able to go back and do what you wanted to do. And
yeah, I think at the end of sort of the 8 years of university, I was like, I had in my mind that I was like going to go on and maybe do some more, like maybe an M2 type degree. Okay. I had I had TA'd a bit in both Waterloo and Calgary.
Yeah.
And in Calgary, I worked with John Brown, who's the head of the School of Architecture there today. And, I think that we had some discussions about that, in terms of me, sort of going on. I decided at that point in time, though, I was going to come back to Ontario. I was sort of in my late 20s at that point in time. And I thought, I'm going to go back and sort of see, what I could do, just in terms of at least getting some experience, because I had no experience.
Right.
I had no experience in the, I felt like kind of lacking on that end of it. So I came back and, worked for a couple small firms. One of them actually is Thomas Brown Architects that I worked with my friend Chris Kabinga. And at a certain point, the firm worked in, it still works to this day. They're one of the, probably have the largest portfolio of EMS and like fire stations, like of any firm in maybe Canada, definitely in Ontario. So, but they had a residential sort of portfolio as well.
Okay.
And at the time, it's early 2000s, the residential condominium market was starting to grow. And I left, Thomas Brown and started up my own thing in 2006.
So how long had you worked at Thomas Brown?
At that point in time, probably 2 to 3 years. I'd got my registration.
Yeah.
And then just decided, at the time it was sort of the right decision for me to move on. I had Chris stayed, and to this day, he runs Thomas Brown. It's his company now, and we stayed very close friends, and we're joint venturing on a number of projects right now. Given the housing market, we are sort of in a bit of a pivot stance more towards the public work, but the residential play worked well for me, because when I got back and I was going through the registration for architecture, I was like, well, I did this planning degree, and the School of Environmental Studies at Waterloo was actually interdisciplinary. It had at the time, right? It had basically environmental science, geography, planning, and architecture under the same roof. And as we know, like, architecture in Waterloo has moved down to Cambridge now. And it was interesting, because I think at that point, the closeness of the disciplines sort of in that faculty was something that I think impacted me anyway. And when I moved to Calgary was a School of Environmental Design that started in the 70s and was very much around this interdisciplinary. It was master's. There's no undergraduate, so it was a master's faculty, and it had a kind of a power to it in terms of the interdisciplinary aspect that really sort of resonated with me. Right, we're working there with planning, architecture, not interior design, industrial design, and environmental science. So, and the thing is, like, on the architectural end of it, because it's a 4-year degree, you had all these people coming in without undergrads and
right,
in architecture. So the conversations were amazing, and that's what I think that the school was about. It was about really bringing together people from varied backgrounds and sort of developing a rich conversation around environmental design and then architecture, planning,
right.
And so that, to me, like, sort of coming back, really, I think it was an important part. And there was something in me that was like, okay, I'm not just going to get my architectural my OAA, I'm gonna get my RPP as well. So I went through the process and managed to obtain both, and then had the goal to, like, start a company. So that was by default, it was Kregg Fordyce Architect at first, which then became KFA, because sort of the abbreviation sort of happened with my clients. It's a mouthful. Right?
Yeah, well, that, and also, I mean, if you look at the overall way in which a lot of practices run, I think there's an importance with the concept of legacy. If you're looking at the firm and you wanted to have some form of succession planning, then, like, yeah, KFA works. If you hand over Kregg Fordyce Architecture, someone else might not want to necessarily have your name on a studio that they run.
Yeah, well, hence our our rebranding that we'll get to.
Oh yeah,
a little
yeah,
further in the
yeah.
story.
Fair enough. Okay,
That's
so
a very good point. Very good point.
so what did I mean, a couple actually. Let me ask the first question. Had you had the intention when you got your license that you wanted to start your own practice, or was it a byproduct of now I've got my license, I think go try this, or you're going into it saying like I'm going to learn what I can, eventually I just have to go and do my own thing?
I think for me, like it was important sort of, coming back to Ontario, I thought that, and to Toronto in particular, if I was going to get the experience and like try to go out there and, really understand, what it means to be an architect, and to run a firm, I kind of had to start my own thing and struggle with that, like, and actually, understand the toil. And believe me, I understand the toil.
So what did that look like initially? So you go and you incorporate, you can figure out you're getting your insurance done. Are you working from, at this point, is it home? Is it a condo? Is it an apartment? Is it parents' place? Like, how are you starting out? And what do some of the first projects look like when you were trying to, I've actually never asked someone this question. I'm going to ask you this question.
Yeah.
How did you establish what your fees would look like?
Yeah, well, I think I had a bit of a head start on that just because I'd been with Thomas Brown.
Yep.
And now it's TBA, right? And we, I think that I started to work into a position there where I was like I was involved with like the business aspect of it to a certain extent, right? And that was something that I was interested in. And the residential clients that we had, like a lot of them were sort of encouraging me, right? There was some that we worked with that are clients to this day. So they're people that I had developed a relationship with, and they were very supportive. So there was a transition there that I had that maybe was very fortunate, and a lot of people who are starting firms maybe don't have that basis because these were buildings that are sizable contracts, right? Like they're larger buildings were at that point in time mid-rise, sort of in that 100 to 150 unit scale, mixed use, commercial, residential. So I think it was a nice transition. The thing that worked well for me too is that the planning is a bit of from a business model, it works as a bit of a hook, right? We get in and we do the land entitlements, and at that point in time, sort of understanding, official plan amendment, rezoning, site plan, and sort of taking the projects through. But I wasn't just focused completely on that, right? We had worked for, quite a bit of work for City of Toronto in terms of EMS and fire still, some of the smaller projects. I didn't want to really compete, with Chris and crew too much. And I moved the firm to where I was living at the time, which was some lofts at Leslieville, right across from the Loblaws. Awesome building filled with photographers, and I think there was a planning firm in there at one point in time. Big Larry Group was in there, and then people lived in there too. It was like so we lived there, and then I had another suite that we took on as another loft we took on as an office
studio space. And when you started it, did you start it and it was just you, or did you start it and already had some projects and you knew, so you started it and you had other employees off the bat?
Yeah, I hired 3 employees like right off the bat, and
to do what? What were the? Do you remember the roles?
Yeah, they were basically technologists.
Okay.
I had an intern, architect, and then two technologists, and it was good. Like, I mean, it was small, kind of nimble. I think we did a reasonable job in terms of getting things going. A lot of these projects weren't like heavy on the design end of it, which was something that we've been incrementally working towards like over time, and now we work with firms like Elastical Farm, so we have gradually sort of increased that element of of the firm. I think that the beginning is difficult, I think, for any firm, just in terms of keeping everything going, trying to understand the business, trying to understand the risk mitigation that essentially is our job as architects.
You're smiling right now. What would that be? What define some of the risk mitigation?
Well, I think that there's definitely you're going out, and when I can remember being in the OAA intern, used to have to go for it. Maybe still do. I don't know. You had to go for to the OAA building for a course in your internship that the one that they take you into with the prodemnity people, and they're like, take a look at the person to the right, take a look at the person to the left. Within the first few years of practice, two of you will be sued, sort of thing. Maybe not, that might be a bit of an exaggeration, but I think that the potential litigious aspect of architecture is definitely something that you have to be aware of, and I think as any young architect is looking at that, and sort of, it's always in your mind.
It's always a thought. Yeah, contemplation.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with something like condominiums, right?
Yeah,
because condominiums, I think, have a particular sort of risk,
right,
that's multiplied by the fact that you have 100 units, you've got 100 lawyers potentially, right?
Not including the board.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah. 101.
Right, and the developer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I mean, gosh, when you really stop and think about what the physical practice of architecture is, and the associated risk with what that can be as a profession, it is wild.
Yeah,
it's wild.
Yeah.
So how did the practice evolve from there to what it kind of has become today, in terms of scales of projects, location, service offering, staffing? How's it changed?
Yeah, we're still, I would say, like a kind of boutique scale firm. Like, we're 21 people right now. The firm, we have evolved over the last few years. I think that something that has been important to me, as I mentioned beforehand, in terms of the interdisciplinary aspect of the schools that I went to,
mm-hmm.
And sort of how we've taken a bit of a focus on where architecture and planning don't quite meet up. There's been we refer to it as a gap, maybe the missing middle in terms of the professions.
Yeah.
There's friction at some level. There's friction that's good friction. There's friction that's bad friction. I think that sometimes we find that there's a bit of bad friction. Good architecture a lot of time bumps up against policy and planning that can be seen as detrimental to the architecture at some level. I think that on the other hand, good planning can sometimes result in bad architecture, and it's something where in Europe they take a bit of a different stance. There's something called spatial planning that does actually sit between architecture and planning, and there's spatial planners, right? And a lot of the time they're people that are trained as other planners that sort of take on that role, or architects maybe that roll into that role. And within the firm, we do have actually a spatial planner from Europe, this gentleman, Vlaslav Timinsky, who is a PhD student just finishing off actually in Stuttgart. And he's been somebody that's sort of, I think over the last couple of years, helped me kind of crystallize sort of where we sit and start to really plot more of I think a trajectory along these lines where we do feel that we occupy that space, and I think our intention is to try and help break down the silos that sort of exist there. I've had a couple very interesting events over the last actually 2 weeks. One was with the OPPI at a conference called Connective, and it was, I think, 40 or 45 planners from across Ontario who came together and talked about the planning profession and the direction. And, one of the points that was, I think, talked about a lot was this siloed aspect between the professions, and how we can encourage dialogue to sort of, bring about change. And there were a few of us there that, had a foot in both worlds, either architecture and planning, or urban design and planning, and landscape and planning. And I think that really resonated throughout the room in terms of this want from the planning side, in particular, to have a better conversation, a better dialogue with our architectural partners, to really, because we all kind of want the same thing. We all want, really good built form, but, sometimes we get in our own way to a certain extent, right? So I think that was like a really great, sort of day and a half, I guess, or 2 day discussion. And then last week we facilitated with the University of Waterloo something called the Spring School, and it was with a PhD student from the School of Planning, Oliver Frayne. And we brought together our architectural students, planning students, undergraduate, master's, PhD students at the School of Planning. And basically in the Spring School, we discussed spatial planning and had a 5-day project where we had partners from the city of Waterloo. We identified a site, which was actually University Avenue. So if you've ever been to Waterloo, where Conestoga College, Laurier, and Waterloo sit, that was the site, and sort of, revisioning University Avenue and Waterloo. And it was like one of the more powerful, sort of, I'd say, teaching education experiences I've ever had. The students were absolutely amazing. They were kind to each other. It was like one of those inspiring events in your life where you're just like, so much hope, so much positivity. And the students were extremely grateful, and just the participatory aspect of it. And like you couldn't even tell who was an architect and who was a planner. Like it was wonderful. We had some special guests that came through the week. We had support from other firms. Dillon Consulting was a supporter in terms of critting and financially. We had Stefano Piatti from Italy, who came and made a guest appearance on the Wednesday and worked in terms of visioning with the students. And it was just I'm probably missing people too, but if I miss you,
non-intentional,
but
it's a stream of consciousness. Don't be offended.
Yeah, but it was sort of, it felt really, really good. Vlad in my office and Oliver were the two that did the heavy lifting on it, and I participated throughout the week. We had good support from the School of Planning. Mark Seasons, who's the head of School of Planning there, was there many days. So it was a really, really great spring school, and I was very happy to be part of that.
Yeah, so you get to see the direction in which things are going to be moving with a new class of potential graduates and others that'll be upcoming, and the way that they're seeing what opportunities lie between the two streams of professional
the disciplines.
Thank you. Discipline. I couldn't get there.
It's all good. I
appreciate you.
Yeah. I appreciate you too. Yeah.
So it's because it's interesting, right? Because you don't really know how a profession is going to evolve after you've been in it for a while. So to see that the students are there and are working together, it's got to be rewarding.
It is, and it kind of reaffirms sort of where KFA and now StudioDEEP has evolved and is evolving too, right? And I think I have this conversation with other architects and planners and landscape architects, and I think that there is this kind of want, I think, to break down the silos and to really have a sort of good working relationships. And, we do on a lot of our projects have like really good working relationships, and we work with other planners, we work with other architects. We're always working with landscape architects. We work with large engineering teams, especially on the larger projects where, there can be at the front end of these projects, a team of, let's say, 10 or 11 consultants that are all working together on the, official plan amendment, rezoning, site plan, and then we spin it into the architectural. And, we have the usual crew sort of thing in terms of mechanical, electrical, structural. But it's something where can we sort of better the process and better the projects, the outcomes, so that we're all more somewhat satisfied at the end, by really having occupying that space is difficult, because I think there is like an ownership aspect to it, right? And in Canada, spatial planning maybe isn't the same as it is in Europe. It's evolved sort of within a different context, but it's something that I think it can be. There can be room for spatial planning in Canada, and it may be a different way of sort of bringing it about. But I think both architects and planners have a role to play there, specifically in terms of getting to this idea of it's a form of systems thinking, and it's not mired in policy, and it informs architecture, and that's where we really want to concentrate at StudioDEEP. Yeah.
Okay, so talk about the transition of the business and why there was a change in name, and what that's done with the trajectory of the business.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it on the head earlier in the conversation. I think that you start off a firm, and you're hanging up a shingle, and it's like Kregg Fordyce architect, and that becomes something that evolves, and the KFA was sort of the evolution at some level, but it didn't really have
the first phase.
Yeah, it doesn't have an identity, and I think it's something where the youth today, or maybe the youth forever, you look at a firm and it's got a number of initials on it, and sure, it pays homage to the people that started the firm, but we felt, I think, collectively, that putting our effort into something that could be a brand that would resonate, I think would be positive, and so far it has been. It's been very.
And
positive.
So, how did you come to the name?
So in my master's, we did a final thesis type project,
a
master's design project, and mine was termed deep architecture. So
it was what?
It was called deep architecture.
Deep architecture.
Yeah, so this is a sort of full circle thing for me.
Well, I have an idea for a couple other full circle things that I've been holding on to, and we'll get to as we get through this. But
okay.
So then describe that. So is StudioDEEP, is it one entity, or how do you, and I don't mean to get into like the whole breakdown of like how do you structure your financial and all that other stuff, but it's more so like, are there divisions of this?
Yeah, so what we've sort of like structurally from a business perspective, we do have like an architecture firm, a planning firm, right? And then we have something that we call the Deep Design Lab, is where we're doing sort of some of our more, let's say, experimental stuff. We do some printing, using techniques with dissolving sort of medium and concrete. Like we print actually we cast, let's say, in concrete, using these sort of printing techniques. One of my staff, Max Komashenko, who's a graduate of TMU, formerly Ryerson. He is very passionate about these types of innovative ways in which to print. He's actually worked also with Stefano Piatti and Elastico Farm to sort of instill some of his knowledge and his experimentation into their firm, and they're using actually some of the printing techniques in some of their important projects, where they're going to be showing. I think they had something in Venice. I can't remember the name of the event, but was a month or two ago, and they have another important showing that they're forming some models and using these techniques in Rome in a month or two.
Cool.
So we kind of we also are interested in materials research. We're working with the Toronto BioBuild Collective, which is a number of firms in Toronto, larger firms. We're kind of the small potatoes firm that's involved, but we really appreciate the comradeship that we've had, with the likes of KPMB and SVN, well, formerly SVN.
Yeah.
MGMA is part of it. Dialogue. So some significant firms in Toronto. And that initiative is a very interesting initiative because it's trying to bring biomaterials to the forefront and create a dialogue around them collectively, so that we can really move the needle in terms of using biomaterials in buildings. A little easier than each firm sort of kind of working on a project and making a bit of noise, but together I think that we have a pretty interesting group and a great mandate to really push biomaterials into the forefront. So we're going to be having an exhibition in July that will be at TMU.
Okay.
So we're sort of working toward that right now, and we're building a bunch of wall assemblies that are going to be part of this exhibition. And the work is it sounds technical in terms of them being wall assemblies. They're kind of one-to-one, mock-ups, and something that you would see being done in school, but each of these firms is doing it, and we're getting support from our industry partners who are gratefully providing some of the materials like Element 5 CLT is they're sort of working with us on ours, and then some of the other ours has a hempcrete sort of aspect, so we're doing some composite wall assembly, and it's a very interesting project. We have a bunch of volunteers from a bunch of the universities that are supporting all the teams, so it's bringing in these volunteers that are working, and they're getting exposure to the firms, they're getting exposure to practice, so it's we're pretty passionate about that one too.
It's great.
Yeah.
And in terms of projects, talk a little bit about scales of project, because I know not everything is directly in Toronto. I know some of it's beyond Toronto, and I know that it's not necessarily a condo and a single family residential. You have a vast array of projects.
Yeah, we sort of we kind of go from maybe even sort of home renovations. We have a small building sort of division that's headed up by Julian Robillard in the office, and he has done we've done work Portugal and South Africa, and then here in Toronto. We have affiliations obviously with Stefano and Elastical Farm, and
Italy.
Days with Walden, that we're working on some I think important residential projects.
I would agree.
That are pushing, I think, pushing the envelope a little bit, in terms of I think Stefano's he's good at challenging projects and really works well with clients, and we have a few very good clients that we're working with right now on some homes that we're happy to be working with him on, and his team in Torino is amazing to work with. We have I think a good relationship. We have a bunch of Italians in our office, and they're obviously Italians, so it's there's a good synergy there.
Yeah, so those calls can actually be spoken in Italian.
They can, yes, yeah.
And if you're not there, you're gonna need closed captioning.
Yeah.
Sorry, if you're there, if you're in it,
I'm the one that's just with the blank look on my face all the time when they start to speak in Italian.
I actually think that now with Google Meeting, you have an option to turn on.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
I'm pretty sure I can verify this afterwards, but
I'm gonna check it out.
I'm almost positive that there is an opportunity now within it to be able to have closed captioning and to put it in your language.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to check that
I
out. Because these guys switch on me all the time. So I'm gonna check that out.
yeah,
I think
so
Stefano sometimes does it on
yeah,
purpose.
just to
Yeah,
mess with you. He's
just to
got a big
mess with
smile on
me.
his face.
Yeah.
And but you're also doing like large scale community planning and
Yeah.
multi-res,
Yeah.
and you were saying now you're looking at public work.
Yeah, so I mean, on the larger scale stuff, we obviously do mixed use buildings, mid-rise. Well, I think we're doing quite a bit of, starting to do quite a bit of missing middle, like sort of, multiplex stuff.
Yeah,
On the lower end, we do a bunch of mid-rise, what I would call high mid-rise, and then some high-rise projects as well. We have a large project that we're working on up in just north of the VMC in Vaughan,
yeah,
which is, they're sort of like I think our tallest project that we've been, really working on. It's, in that 50-story range sort of thing. So,
it's
for
pretty
us,
substantial.
it's getting to be taller towers. And then we have a very large project in Niagara, which
Yeah,
is the Prudhomme's Landing project. And we've been working with FBH there for a number of years, and that project has is kind of like a full community. So it has a few thousand residential units in it, mixed across sort of low rise, mid rise, and some potentially high rise towers. A main street that's sort of got a commercial component to it, some industrial office, right on the lake. Sort of a beautiful, property right on Lake Ontario. If you're ever sort of traveling on the QEW, it used to be actually a place that, as kids we would go to because they had a great haunted house at Halloween, and it was an amusement park at one point in time. But it's a very rich history in that project because back in the day, Mr. Prudhomme, who owned it, was it was a hobby farm, and had fruit trees, very romantic sort of on the lake, and then people would go for picnics and that, and then it ended up becoming an event space where they had singers like Lisa Minnelli and stuff would sort of come. And I think that there was a bunch of sort of fires and stuff in the early 20th century that kind of they transitioned and then sort of went more the amusement park, which was kind of common in Niagara, and but never sort of gained the sort of scale of something like Crystal Beach or Marineland or something like that. So, but it was always fun for us as kids to go to, and I actually went to high school with two of the grandchildren, so of the Prudhommes.
cool.
So it was always a there's a place in my past there, and in terms of my heart, and now we're working on it to sort of re-envision it as a kind of a whole community.
It's pretty amazing.
That area, yeah.
So one of my ideas that I'll now reveal to you on creating a full circle moment for you for your love of things in your teens and 20s you probably still love, looking at RFPs for. You ready?
I'm ready.
For like ski clubs throughout North America, but then also looking at RFPs for things like the public work of like, it sounds silly, but like National Guard or what's it called? Services, Coast Guard services.
Oh, Coast Guard services. Yeah.
How cool would it be to be able to design?
Yeah.
One of their stations.
Yeah.
Having been a part of it.
Well, I think that I've thought of that, and I have. I think that when we had gone after a facility, I want to say it was a facility in Parry Sound, but anyway, it was a Coast Guard facility back in the day. But we haven't really, because the housing market has been something that's been sustaining us for a number of years, and because we do have like sort of. We do some commercial work, we do some industrial work, we do some class A, like, sort of office interiors work. We do some physical fitness clubs and stuff like that as well. We have a diversity, I think, within the portfolio, but because the housing market has downturned and a lot of our clients are switching to purpose-built rental, and we seem to be, fine on that end of it. But there is a want on our end to spin sort of more into, and going back, like the emergency service, we feel that that's like our way into, working with Chris and
Yes.
And sort of in joint venture and sort of going after a number of these like projects like you're suggesting are kind of what we're doing. And I think a lot of firms are sort of making that pivot because the infrastructure spend is getting.
We got to talk it into existence.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone out there, you're working in some capacity, okay, on the RFP process for like, National Guard or
any Coast Guard station,
Coast Guard station, or, there's like this intimate ski chalet that might be perhaps for like, for a private resorts, or maybe maybe it's a publicly traded resort, and they need to have like a climate station at the top, right?
It's a good plug, man.
Now we're tying together to what your dad was doing. Let's bring it full circle.
Yeah, no, those types of projects would be great.
Right?
I mean, right now in terms of what we're working on, sort of in and around the GTA. We are working with a number of municipalities on some EMS and fire type projects.
It's great.
Which is great. And, those clients are always very interesting and very, sort of fun to work with. And, the federal stuff like on the Coast Guard and that, there's definitely spending on defense that's happening now. And, we're looking at those, and I think that a lot of people are, hitting bids and tenders and, looking at Mercs and really trying to figure out where they fit in that realm. But yeah, it's evolving in terms of the portfolio, that's for sure.
Well, I and it has to. I think that, some of the decisions that you've made in the way that you've managed the business over the years, from things that you've discussed now, seem like you've always kind of tried to stay ahead of necessary change, and having to be forced into it. Like you're actually actively pursuing it in advance, which speaks to a studio that can be malleable.
Well, I think that we are. I think malleable is a good word. I think that the spatial planning aspect of it and where our interest lies there, is something that is a good example of that, because we are trying to really bring something about where we can work with municipalities, maybe other firms as well. We work with some planning firms that they don't maybe have the depth when it comes to sort of creating something that's a spatial plan that's really a good dialogue for all of the partners involved in a project. Like when you're talking about a municipality and let's say the ratepayers, the other sort of interested parties, to really get something not that's just like a graphic plan, but is a well thought out systems based sort of plan. And when I'm saying plan, like it's holistic. It's not just like you're looking at a top down view and sort of reading a land use map sort of
right
thing. It's not that, right? It's something that really delves into mobility and the environment and the demographics, and really translates and sort of understands the policy that sort of shapes but then informs sort of the built form, and can be a really great place to sort of have that dialogue with the architects that are going to realize that built form, whether it's us or somebody else, right? So I think we feel pretty passionate about that, and we think it's a great place where we have the language around it and sort of the experience, specifically with Vlad on board, and right at the cutting edge, right? He's a guy that sort of has his has just come from Europe, is engaged with Stuttgart and in the past ETH, Zurich and Delft. So he's got some serious sort of connections, and has thought a lot about this stuff.
Yeah,
so
I'm gonna use this like the Yiddish term growing up is like he's got chutzpah.
Yeah. No, for sure. And the people here that are working in these spaces too, we're having some dialogue with some people at the city of Toronto, or at the University of Toronto, as well as TMU, and then definitely in Waterloo. So I mean, this dialogue's happening, and we want to be part of it, and if we can help it along, we think we're very happy to be part of that, going forward.
So tell me, what does life for you outside of studio look like? I understand that you're doing a lot. So how are you able to unwind from it? What are some of the things that you still have an interest in dabbling in as hobbies and activity and family?
I still I live down on the waterfront now,
Yeah.
and my partner and I, we sail.
Okay.
She had never sailed, and then we had a happy accident in terms of falling into a vessel that we're pretty passionate about, but is right now getting a new engine. So we're going to be doing some sailing, hopefully soon.
Couple weeks.
Well,
maybe
it might be a bit of a month. The engine is ready to go. It just hasn't been put in the boat. So that can take a bit.
Well, it's also like the busiest time of year, right?
Yeah, this is the thing.
Yeah,
right? Like it's always a challenge on boats. I think that there's some sayings around boats with regard to you're just either pumping a lot of money into them or not being able to use them, and it's frustrating.
Yeah,
but I still love being on the water, and that's something that I find super relaxing and chill. And we've done some great trips, like on Lake Ontario, and then through the canal system up into Lake Erie, and traversing Lake Erie. So yeah, we like to sail.
And how big is the length of the boat?
It's a 41-foot boat.
Okay.
So it's a good size.
Yeah, so it's a good size. It's comfortable on water.
It's not super comfortable because it's an old racing boat.
Oh,
so it's a little bare bones, but it's fun to sail, and it's we love those sort of summer evenings in Toronto where you'll have to come actually this summer. We should do that where you go out on a nice little bit of breezy, summer evening and do a bit of a trip around the island.
I'll tell you. So, I mean, as an aside to that, when I was young, I used to go to overnight camp, and my favorite activity at overnight camp was sailing.
Oh, nice.
So I used to take out those lasers.
Yeah.
Right. So
this is like a big laser. It's essentially, it's like, seriously. It's like
so I would solo. I would go out and solo on lasers all the time, and I would try to ride it literally almost in a 90.
Nice.
Many times flipping, and trying to.
We try and keep it.
Well, yeah, yours I don't think you want to flip, but learning the art of the dry flip. What's it called? It's not a flip, but anyhow,
probably a technical term.
There's a technical term for it, but I remember like learning the art of the dry flip, and I could master it. Like the boat would be soaked, but as it was turning over, I'd hop the side.
Right. Yeah.
Man, sailing is incredible.
Yeah, it's a great great sport.
Harnessing the power of wind is something. Anyhow. Yeah. So, and what else? What outside of that? Are you still skiing at all?
My skiing has dropped off. The last skiing event I had, I was Whistler. And, I went up there for a day after a speaking engagement at the Build conference in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And I skied that one day, and then I went down and went over to Tofino, and I surfed in Tofino with the snow falling. It was awesome. And then haven't skied really since, and that was like 2019, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have 3 boys, and they're all in Germany trying to become pro soccer players. So my time is spent
traveling to see them.
So yeah. And that's been an amazing experience as well. I love Europe, and they're in southwestern Germany, just around Mannheim. It's a amazing landscape, wonderful place, good mountain biking. I do go mountain biking there, so that's it's great.
I was just mountain biking in New Brunswick a week and a half ago from the date of this recording, on another guy's mountain bike on a trail that I didn't know. It was 6 degrees. I was out there with Lucas McDowell from Bishop McDowell, and two of us, like he was fine. I was struggling. I had a cold and everything.
It makes your voice sound good, though. I mean, you got that.
I mean, I guess that's what someone actually just recently said. They're like, "Oh, your raspy voice is great." But when you go mountain biking on trails that you don't know, and you don't know your way around on how to navigate the connection points between trails, and you're constantly having to try to open up a map and figure out where you are, it's a little bit exhausting.
Yeah. I've been down that road
but
times.
But I would imagine, biking out there in Europe. I mean, that's a full bucket list.
Yeah, the area that the boys live, they're in a little town called Neustadt for quite a while, and it has the Hart Forest, which is sort of an elevation change from the Rhineland-Palatinate, and it sort of climbs up, and it's not like a huge amount of sort of up, but like it's enough, and they have a kind of an interesting loam there that dries quickly, so even if you get some rain and stuff, like you can still get out there.
Well, in the bikes, like European bike brands that don't even see North America, some of them are incredible out there.
Oh yeah. And I was bringing my bike for a while, but now I just rent or whatever while I'm there. But we do some. My youngest son and I have done. Well, actually, I think probably maybe all of them. We've done some night riding and stuff like that out there, which has been a lot of fun.
Night riding,
where you're just out in these forests, and don't really know where you're going, but.
During the summertime, I go out in the dawn at night, and it's incredible. You start during dusk, and then you're like at the other end, and you're like, it's dark, and then you flip on your headlamp, and you got your lights on your handlebars. Anyone listening to this, if you don't know about this world, let me tell you, the dawn in Toronto is like 100 kilometers of trail network of single track. It's incredible. Anyhow, I digress.
Me too.
Craig, it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks for taking time to do this with me today, to open up and be so candid with stories of your life, and we're getting to recount some of it. I think it's going to be interesting, some of the legacy stuff here. And when I say that, talking about how your kids right now are in Germany, how this conversation will have evolved 5 years from now, and what they're doing and what you're doing. So. Thanks for doing it. I really look forward to having you here and chatting and learning all about you.
Oh, thanks very much, man. It's been very enjoyable.